welcome guys. We are back with another lecture on React, and today we're gonna look into the two techniques called lifting up state, and the other one is called context API. So we'll look into these two techniques: what is lifting up state and what is context API basically. Let me go ahead. Yeah. So in React, often several component needs to reflect the same changing data. So what React people do, they recommend to lift up the shared state up to their closest common ancestor. So what we're gonna see a practical example of this. We're gonna make use of this component which you can see right. Uh, so let me go ahead and tell you guys how lifting up state this technique works. We're gonna head back to our uh, terminal, and I'm gonna keep it side by side so you guys can see it very clearly like this. So what this function is nothing. These two components are doing is I'm just hitting up the increment button, so the counter is incrementing, and when I'm decrementing the counter, it's getting decremented. And both these component has their own state, so they don't depend on each other. So there's no dependency. So this the second counter which I'm right now incrementing is different from this incrementer. So we'll look into this technique and we'll write this code from scratch. So let me guys go ahead and do this for you guys. Okay. So what we're gonna do again is we're gonna make our app function, and inside this app function, the same thing we were doing for past 2 days. So what we're gonna do is write a return statement. In this return statement, what we're gonna call inside is we're gonna call a counter, and this is saying that counter is not defined. So we're gonna go ahead and define a counter. We're gonna go ahead and define a counter function. So let me go ahead and do this. You guys can do this separately. I mean that you guys can go and make a different file like this, and you guys can do this like this also. But this function is not that big, so can you guys see my text editor?
Yes.
Hello. Okay. So I'm gonna write a counter component right here. So we write const counter, and inside this we're gonna type in our return statement. Inside this return statement, we're gonna make use of a div. Inside that div, we're gonna pass in our counter state. So I haven't declared it yet, so let me go ahead and declare our state. So to state, okay, and I'm gonna set it to counter, and the initial value would be 0 for now. It's gonna be our counter. We have declared our counter right here, and we are using again drawing the counter inside our JSX method. Okay. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna give it 2 buttons. Let me first refresh it. Now you guys can see the code is not breaking any longer, and you can see the counter right here. Okay. Can you guys see it? Hello? So let me go ahead and make 2 buttons which we're gonna use to increment this counter. So inside this button this button gonna say, like, you can also write increment, but for now I'm gonna use this plus sign, and after that I'm gonna declare another button which says decrement. Okay, and I have to pass them, so you guys can see the changes reflected directly right here. But these functions are not doing anything because I haven't assigned any click handler to these buttons. So let me go ahead and do this for you guys. So I'm gonna go ahead and make another function called increment, or you can say increment counter. It's your choice. And inside this function, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the same thing. I'm gonna use this set counter to increment the counter. So let me go ahead and do this. Okay. and I have to increment it by 1. You can also increment it by 2 or 3. uh, I'm incrementing it by 1. So, and inside this on click, let me go ahead and put on click. This on click will take the input called increment. Sorry. Yeah. And when you hit this button, now the counter is incremented. But the decrement part is not working yet because we haven't wrote that function. So let me do this for you. I'm gonna go right here and I'm gonna click again and give it a name called decrement, and we're gonna declare our decrement function. So decrement would be like this, and we're gonna set counter again. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna decrement it by 1, so we have to subtract it by 1. So we're gonna count it by 1. And now if I go ahead and increment it, the counter is incrementing, and if I go ahead and hit this decrement button, it's decrementing as well. So this is pretty much, this can be used in your cart, in the shopping cart list when you go to your any Flipkart or any other e-commerce website. When you hit add to cart, this is the same thing. You can use this functionality to make that functionality in live. But this is just a demo for you guys that how lifting up state works. So yeah. So now if we go ahead in our app, okay, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna call two different independent counter methods which we have declared. So we are using the power of state right here. I'm gonna wrap it inside this. Since React only returns a single element, so we have to be careful about that. So we have to wrap it inside this thing. We're gonna do it. We're gonna go ahead and declare the counter. So now you guys can see we have two counters. You can go ahead and declare many more. And right now each are maintaining their own state. If I increment this counter doesn't get incremented, or this counter also doesn't get incremented. And if I increment this count, it gets incremented. So these all counters have their own state. But what if you have to keep these all three counters in sync? Then what you could have done? So you guys should have like you guys will approach to this technique called lifting up state, and you're gonna lift up this state which I am declared right here, this counter state, and these two functions I'm going to lift up to its parent component, which is the definition seems the same thing. Often several component needs to reflect the same changing data. So both these component needs to reflect the same changing data. So what React guys recommend is lifting the shared state. So this is going to be the shared state, and we're going to provide it to this app component. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete it right from here. I cut and paste it inside this. The program is still not working because we haven't passed it. If the inside this app component, the children must accept the props. So we haven't given it the props, so we have to give it a prop called increment counter and decrement function. So let me go ahead and select it and use this feature called multiple selector or multiple cursor, you can see. And I'm gonna give it a name called counter. Okay, and inside counter I'm gonna give it counter method and an increment. So you guys can see I have passed the props right here, and I also have to destructure it right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to destructure it over here itself, counter and increment and now what we can do is we have passed our things inside this. Now what's the problem coming here? Its counter is not defined. Okay, wait, I'm using the same variable. Increment. Okay. Okay, this right here, and you guys can see our code is now fixed. And if I hit this increment button, both the states are changed. So these both counters are in synchronization with each other. So what we did here is we lifted up the state and we picked up the state from this counter function and we moved it to right here to this app. So whenever we go ahead and increment any counter, both the counters gonna increment it. And if we hit decrement, both the counters gonna decrement. Are you guys clear on this part? Is clear on this part till now? Any doubt? Okay. Come on, guys. Any doubt in this lifting up state thing? Anyone having trouble or had trouble understanding it? Cool. What we're gonna do now? What we're gonna do is we're gonna jump into a thing called our context API. So, what context API is? It's nothing. I'm gonna give it to you example. This is how the component will look like. And context API is primarily used when some data needs to be accessible by many components at different nesting levels. So this came out in React 16.3, and after that they used a hook called use context when they released new version of React, which was I think 16.8. And what it does, it removes prop drilling. So I'm gonna show you how prop drilling looks like and how we can overcome this problem. So let's get back to our code editor and see how it works, how prop drilling works. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and push. Let me minimize it more. Okay, cool. Now we're gonna look into this part, so I'm gonna delete it, everything. You guys can access this code from our GitHub repo, and inside this I'm gonna delete it from that. So let me go ahead and make another state for you. So your use state, and inside this use state let's take person info. Okay, so we're gonna give it an info. Inside this state you can pass object, you can pass single value, you can pass an object as well. So what we can do is we're gonna give it a name, and the name says John, and after that his age like 20, and gender we're gonna give it a male. Okay, we have declared our state. Now nothing was returned from the render. This usually means return statement is missing because we haven't returned anything from this component. You guys have to return at least a single thing, otherwise the component will break. So let me go ahead and give it a return statement. So what does this return statement gonna say? Let's see. So with this return statement, I'm gonna take out the username like this, and what I'm gonna do is info.name. So I return this single thing, so you guys can see the John right here. Okay. Yeah. Now you guys can see it clearly. Yeah, cool. So now you guys can see the John right here. But what we were talking about is prop drilling problem. So again, we're gonna declare another function called person. Inside it, we're gonna render this thing, and we're gonna call that person inside this app component. So let me go ahead and declare another component for you, const person. And every time when you declare a component, try using capital cases, because these are composite component. These are not usual HTML elements, so you have to give it a name by capital letter. It's mandatory in there. We're gonna use this person, and inside this person, what we're gonna do, we're gonna go ahead and cut paste this code from here, and we're gonna copy it right here. I've taken out this. We have made it more modular to explain you guys about how prop drilling is, what it looks like. So I'm gonna go ahead and call the person inside this app, this parent component. This app is the parent component, and inside this person, and nothing info is not defined obviously. So what we have to do is we have to pass this info to this component, and how we can do that, we can make use of props. So let me go ahead and pass this info to person component, and we can destructure it right here. Now we can see our result. Okay, so we have made another component, and you guys can go ahead and see there's a tool called React Dev tool. So you guys can go ahead and download it. It's a browser extension, so you guys can go ahead and download it. You can search it on Google like React Dev tools for Chrome or Firefox. So you guys can see this is very helpful. Usually when you click on this thing, you guys can see right here, I can check what props app is taking. So it's taking no props. And after that, it gives me information about the hooks, what hook we have used. So we have used this hook, which has the value called the person info, called its name, age, gender, and so on. And you guys can go inside this person as well. So this guy, this app is a parent of this person. Now you guys can see what props we are getting. We don't have any, and it's also showing that it's rendered by app. So the parent thing is app. And inside this we are getting the props right: age, male, age, gender, and the name of the person. So this can be very helpful for you guys when you debug your React app. So go ahead and download this. Now it's just now one level deep. Now make it 2 level deep. So we're going to declare another function called family. Okay, and inside this family, what I'm going to do is I'm going to return it. And inside this, we're going to call this person component inside this family. And here we're going to use family. Okay, it broke, no problem. Let me go ahead and remove this. And now if you guys go ahead and see your DevTools components, now you guys can see 3 components. The parent components is app, the other its children is family, and family child is person. So it's nested, it's 3 level deep now. And what if I had to pass this the age and gender thing to this person directly? Is there any way? By default we don't have any way. We have to get through this family component as well to pass down this whole info to this person. So this is okay when your component level is 1 or 2 or 3 level deep, but when your app grows, it goes like 7 level deep. It's going to be a very headache for you guys to pass down the props. This thing is called like prop drilling. So you are getting your prop from your parent component and drilling it down to the child, to the last child. So this and usually what people do is for this very small reason, they reach redux too soon, which not needed right here. So that's why React guys developed this cool thing called context API. I'm going to show you that. But first, print this name right here. So what we have to do is we have to pass in the info here as well, because this is the parent of person component. So inside this info, I'm gonna do this like you guys can see John. So what else we can take here is it's his name, his age, okay, his age and his gender. Now you guys can see it can access the whole state. And if you guys go ahead and see the same component, now you guys can see this family has a prop. Again, this person also has a prop, and it is rendered by family then app. So this is showing a pretty much great thing right here, and it's very easy for you guys to debug. You don't have to console log every prop you guys having trouble with, and you guys can also see it like you guys can see all when you guys hit that anchor brackets, you guys can see the code right here as well, which is pretty much handy thing. Okay, you guys can debug your app, you guys can inspect the matching element, many more stuff you guys can do when you get your hands on this tool. You guys get to know more about this tool. So try getting into this tool, and it's going to be very helpful for you guys. So that you guys can see how much deep we have to pass this prop to family, then we have to pass the prop to person component, which is good for now. But what if your component is like 7 level or 8 level deep, so you can't do like this thing. It's not that efficient, and this thing gonna be many more expensive tasks to execute. So what we can do is we're gonna make use of context API. So how we can do this? Let me go ahead and show you guys. I'm gonna declare a common object called info, and what this info gonna get inside is this whole thing. So let me go ahead and cut paste this and paste. Okay, and the next thing what can I do is I have to use a special method given by React guys is create context, because I have to create a context for this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna name it a theme context. You can name it anything you want. I'm just giving it a theme context, and you're gonna go ahead and call this create context object right here. And if you're using it, you also have to export it, or you can do this like tag dot create context. You guys can import it, right? So as you can see, I have imported this component from the React library, and inside this create context, I'm gonna pass this info. So I'm gonna make this info as a context. So what I'm gonna do is I have made this. Okay. Now the time is to call this context, and how we can do this is by we will go inside our app component. Let me fold it now. Okay. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna delete this state. We don't need it anymore. And what we can do is we also don't need this props. Parentheses, and inside this parentheses we're gonna use a theme context provider. So theme context, we are using this theme context variable, and what we're gonna do is dot provider. This usually, when you create a context, this becomes object, and inside this object you get this provider function. So this is like a parent state, and inside this and of every component which is inside this theme context thing can access the data which is inside this theme context. Okay. And we have to give it a children called family, and the family has person. Okay. And what we can do now is go ahead inside the person. We can remove this stuff. We can also remove this. So inside this family, we can also remove this props right from here. We can also remove this. Now what we can do is inside this person, all because we have to access that state inside this person, not inside the family. So what we can do is we can go ahead and get this context and declare it right here. So how we can do this is like this. You can go ahead and call another hook called use context, and inside that use context, what you're gonna do is you're gonna get this theme context and pass it right here. At start, it's pretty much confusing. When I also started learning React, it was very confusing to me. But when you guys go ahead and code and play around with the code, you guys will learn gradually. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to console and log it out this info, and let's see if we are accessing this info or not. Okay, still it's saying info is not defined. Okay, and in app.js it's saying info is not defined. It's saying that. We haven't declared it. We haven't initialized this info, so we can do this by this. Now you guys can go ahead and see inside your console. Inside the console is saying not defined. Okay, why is doing that? Let me check. Okay, so here's the tricky part. We haven't passed the value to this provider. So before initializing this, we have to also provide what value you want to pass. Right, so we want to pass this info thing right here. So we're gonna pass this like in. Now you guys can see the changes are reflected as soon as we pass this value to this theme provider. We got this, like we got the whole thing like age, gender, name. And if you guys go ahead and uncomment this, refresh it, now you guys can see we don't have to pass any props down to that component. And if you guys go in this component thing, you guys can see one more parent is added, and this is called context provider. And inside family, you guys can see it's still loading. Okay, yeah, now you guys can see we don't have any prop because we are not providing a prop. Still we are passing the data to person, data from app to person directly without passing any props. This is a cool feature, the cool thing about context API, and it removes the when people reaches Redux so soon, they don't have to, because it's a little bit of complicated thing. So if you guys want to give it a start, you guys can go ahead and play around with the code, and if you guys have any doubt in this, you guys can ask me. You guys can go ahead and ask me anything. If anybody has any kind of doubt in this context API thing, it's a pretty much confusing at start, but once you get your hands on it, you guys are gonna get clear with this stuff. But you have to practice this context API part because it's a little bit of tricky. And you guys can also go ahead and refer to this blog called this guy's name is Kenzie Dots, and he has written about the prop drilling. So you guys can go ahead and read this blog, which and this blog gonna clear your heavy doubt. I really like this blog. I'm gonna share it in the link below. You guys can read this prop drilling thing right here, and for more content you can also subscribe to his newsletters. So enough for today. Shalini, you can